Among the natural rights, some are in their very nature unalienable because no equivalent can be given or received for them. Of this kind are rights of conscience that ties back to the previous one. We said we surrender up certain of our natural rights in protection of others, but there are some rights that can't be surrendered because you can't get something equal for them. Article 5 is the freedom of religion. Article 6, or the original authorization for education, is what really began me on this path. As morality and piety, well, actually, I'm going to read that one next to last. Article 7. The people of this state, and this is state sovereignty, the people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state, and do and forever hereafter shall exercise and enjoy every power, jurisdiction, and right pertaining thereto, which is not or may not hereafter be by them expressly delegated to the United States of America in Congress Assembly. Article 8, very important. All power residing originally in and being derived from the people, all the magistrates and officers of government, I'm one, are their agents, substitutes, and agents, and at all times accountable to them. That means I work for you. I am your servant. Article 9 is no hereditary offices. Article 10. Government being instituted for the common benefit, protection, and security of the whole community. Again, there's that general good. And not for the private interest or emolument of any one man, family, or class of men. Therefore, whenever the ends of government are perverted, and the public liberty manifestly endangered, and all other means of redress are ineffectual, the people may, and of a right, ought to reform the old or establish a new government. These are the evangelical principles. So let's go back to Article 6. This is important. As morality and piety rightly grounded on evangelical principles will give the best and greatest security to government and will lay in the hearts of men the strongest obligations to due subjection. What did they mean? What subjection were they talking about? We just read Article 10. And they said that when government is perverted, we are obligated to reform or replace the government. And yet they said morality and piety rightly based on evangelical principles will give the best and greatest security of the government and lay in the hearts of men the strongest obligation to due subjection. So we just saw that those in government are subject to the people. All power originates from the people. What do they mean by evangelical principles? Think about what was going on in America, and this is what's most important. When you're trying to understand what our founders wrote, you have to walk in their shoes. What was their worldview? What was going on around them? They were under assault. Imagine, if you will, the federal government comes in and quarters troops in your house. Or they come and they steal all the food out of your cupboards. Or they tell you that you can't work without their permission. Their government that they believed in. Remember, our first Constitution said, this is just temporary until we can be reunited, until this unhappy conflict is over. They didn't want to get rid of Great Britain, but Great Britain had become hostile to them. What did that teach them? That taught them that all governments can become hostile. That's why we have written constitutions. America was unique. Europe was governed mostly by the Roman Catholic Church, and where it wasn't governed by the Roman Catholic Church, it was governed by the Lutheran Church and the Church of England. Those are what were called liturgical churches. Top-down government. The local pastors are appointed by the central body of the church. But something had happened during the 1500s. A new worldview had erupted. And American liberty was birthed when Constantinople fell to the Turks. because the Eastern Orthodox Church, which had been centered in Constantinople, they had to flee. They came west, from your perspective, west to Europe. At the same time, in the Reformation of England and the fight between Protestantism and the Roman Catholic Church, those who were trying to follow the Bible more exactly had to flee Europe with the Tyndale Bible, and they ended up in Europe. They met in Geneva, and they suddenly were confronted with the Greek and Hebrew scriptures, not a Latinized Bible, original scriptures that came out of Eastern Europe. And they were amazed, and they started reading, and they understood a different translation than what had been passed down to them. This resulted in the Geneva Bible. It was originally finished translation as the first Bible with chapter and verse, not the King James. First Bible with chapter and verse. Finished in 1539. They spent the next 60 years writing commentary. So the average person could pick up a Bible and study it. The King James Bible, which took out the commentary and changed a few words and changed a few verses, was a rebuttal to the Geneva Bible. This is the Bible the Pilgrims wrote. This was the Bible of America. And it was the Bible used by congregational churches, Presbyterian churches, Baptist churches. It was, and what is the primary characteristic of these churches that's different from the liturgical church? They elect their local pastors, either directly or indirectly. This is the connections I was making 2 years ago. Evangelical principles, yes, they carried a religious connotation, but what set evangelical churches apart in the minds of the founders most definitely was the local nature, the local control. Evangelical principles were principles of bottom-up government, church and civil. How do I know that this idea has any veracity in the period? Last summer it was rather interesting. I was listening to the book John Adams, and in that I learned that John Adams' first significant recognized political writing was on the connection of liturgical churches and feudal society. This is what they meant by evangelical principles, and that's what all the articles I just read you, and the one I didn't read you, Article 38, the last one, all deal with bottom-up government. They all deal with power originating in the people, and the people delegating a certain amount of their sovereign authority to their states for the purposes of their common good, their common protection, making an environment conducive to commerce, enabling them to enjoy and defend their life and liberty, enabling them to acquire, possess, and protect property. So, what happened with the government for the United States? Where did that come from? Did it just spring up and create states? What does the word state mean? Anybody know what the word state means? What it is synonymous with? Country. Exactly. It is synonymous with nation. Greek city-states. When we became the state of New Hampshire, we were the little nation of New Hampshire. That is how they thought of themselves. But they knew that they were a group of small countries that had no capacity to stand up to the great nations of the earth. And so they entered into a confederation, and later, more tightly, a federation.